Did you know that the Library of Alexandria didn't fall like most people think? Hello and welcome to World History Encyclopedia. My name is Kelly and today's video is all about the Great Library of Alexandria, how it worked, and how its fall did not actually set human knowledge back thousands of years. World History Encyclopedia is a non-profit organisation and you can find us on Patreon, a brilliant site where you can support our work and receive exclusive benefits in return. Your support helps us create videos twice a week, so make sure to check it out via the pop-up in the top corner of the screen or via the Patreon link down below. The Library of Alexandria is the most famous library of the ancient world. Even people who don't know ancient history have heard of it, and those who do usually have very strong feelings about it, especially its final fate. The fall of the Library of Alexandria is commonly blamed on three events. The fire started in Alexandria's harbour by Julius Caesar in 48 BCE, destruction by Christian zealots in 391 or 415 CE, and the burning of the scrolls by Muslim Arab invaders in 641 CE. The first two events may have eliminated some scrolls or damaged the buildings, but the library was already in decline by 48 BCE and still existed in the Christian era. No mention is made of the destruction of the library in 391 or 415 CE, and none of its existence by 641, so none of these could have caused the library's fall. The Library of Alexandria declined because it lost the patronage of the Ptolemaic Dynasty that supported it. The buildings that housed the collection were probably destroyed in 272 by the Emperor Aurelian in his war with Zenobia, or in 297 by the Emperor Diocletian. However it fell, it did not take all the knowledge of the ancient world with it, nor did its fall set human development back thousands of years, as we shall see soon. Did you know that only a small fraction of viewers are subscribers? Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our new videos, and to help us create more great history content. So let's start at the beginning. Alexandria, Egypt, was founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BCE, and then he went on with his conquest of Persia. After his death in 323 BCE, Egypt was taken by his general, Ptolemy I Soter, and it was either he or one of his advisors, Demetrius of Phalerum, who first proposed establishing a universal library in the city that would rival the intellectual centre of Athens, Greece. It was probably Ptolemy I, who was a scholar himself, who suggested it, as the concept of a great library would have been in keeping with his vision of the city as a major cultural and intellectual hub. The buildings that housed the library were built or completed under Ptolemy I's successor, Ptolemy II Philadelphus. And note I said buildings plural, as there was never a single building that housed the library's collection. There was the Royal Library, the Museion, a kind of scriptorium university think tank, and the Serapeum, temple of the god Serapis, as well as a smaller building near the Museion campus and warehouses by the harbour that held copies of books. The Museion, dedicated to the Nine Muses, gives us the English word museum, as it was a place of preservation of knowledge, the arts, and culture. The position of head librarian was awarded by the royal court to a scholar who had made some original contribution to his field of study and then held that post for life. During the time of the library at its height, between 323 and 145 BCE, these were Xenodotus, who was the first to establish the authoritative works of Homer and develop an alphabetical system of organisation for a library; Eratosthenes, who was first to calculate the circumference of the Earth and make a map of the known world, among many other accomplishments. There was Aristophanes of Byzantium, who was a great Greek grammarian who actually invented punctuation. There was one Apollonius, who was cited as maker of forms, but he's otherwise unknown, and also the better known Apollonius of Rhodes, who was the famous author of the Argonautica on the myth of Jason and the Argonauts. The famous poet and scholar Callimachus of Cyrene is often cited as head of the Library of Alexandria, but this is inaccurate. Callimachus used the library to create his pinakes, or tablets, which was a comprehensive category of all extant Greek works that became a kind of card catalogue for the library, since he used its collection for his 120-book work. Although the pinakes has not survived, it was referenced enough to inspire later scholars to develop the card catalogue system used by libraries around the world today. The Library of Alexandria was a complex of buildings resembling a modern college or university campus. It was funded by Ptolemy I, and after him by the royal house until 145 BCE. Scholars were invited to live in the Museion tax-free, rent-free, and were provided with meals and a token salary. Relieved of having to worry where their next meal was coming from, they devoted themselves to scholarship, criticism, and teaching. The library had communal dining halls, reading rooms, the library's collection of books, scrolls, laboratories, observatories, lecture halls, classrooms, landscaped gardens, and possibly a zoo. Women at this time during the Ptolemaic Dynasty do not seem to have been allowed to use the library, though they did later during the Roman period, exemplified by the scholar Hypatia of Alexandria. The library is said to have held 500,000 works, though this might be an exaggeration, and the collection was built through the acquisition policy of the early Ptolemaic kings. Book agents were sent out to purchase works from anywhere they could, even from private libraries. Ships that docked in Alexandria's harbour were boarded, and any books confiscated, copied, and the copies given back to their owners. The originals went into the collection. Older works were the most valuable because they had not been extensively copied and so were thought to contain fewer scribal errors. The value of these works created a black market industry of forging old copies that would sell for high prices. And these prices were paid because the Ptolemies were intent on creating the greatest library in the world, and were in direct competition with their rival, the Library of Pergamon, which held at least 200,000 works and followed the same policy of acquisition. The library began to decline under the reign of Ptolemy VIII in 145 BCE. Ptolemy VIII had been as faithful a patron as his predecessors, but withdrew his support after a power struggle with his brother, Ptolemy VI, who had been supported by some of the scholars of the library. Ptolemy VIII banished all foreign scholars from Alexandria, and after him, royal patronage of the library declined. The position of head librarian no longer went to a great scholar, but to whatever political crony pleased the king best. By the time of the reign of Cleopatra VII, between 51 and 30 BCE, the library was long past its glory days. In 48 BCE, when Julius Caesar was fighting Cleopatra's brother, Ptolemy XIII, a fire he set is said to have destroyed the Library of Alexandria. But later writers still reference the library, and Mark Antony is said to have given the collection of the Library of Pergamon to Cleopatra for the Alexandrian library in 43 BCE. So it still existed after Julius Caesar's death, and was still going during the time of Augustus Caesar, who gave some, but not all, of the books back to Pergamon. Patronage of the library declined further under Rome, as although some emperors, such as Hadrian, invested in it deeply, most did not. When the foreign scholars left Alexandria in 145 BCE, it is assumed they took whatever they were working on with them, and may have taken other works as well. By the time of Hadrian, who reigned between 117 and 138 CE, Alexandria was no longer the great intellectual centre it had been. Athens was, and the library followed suit. Its buildings were almost certainly destroyed in 272 when the Emperor Aurelian, reclaiming Egypt from Zenobia of Palmyra, levelled that part of the city. And if the buildings survived Aurelian, they were destroyed in 297 by Diocletian during his campaign in Alexandria. In 391, Theophilus, Bishop of Alexandria, had the Temple of Serapis destroyed in his efforts to wipe out pagan idolatry. But there is no mention of the destruction of the library at this time, probably because it was already gone. and any books that were still in the Serapeum would have been copied long before. In 415, the Neoplatonic philosopher and scholar Hypatia of Alexandria was murdered by a Christian mob, and this event has also been cited as the date for the destruction of the library. But there is no evidence to support that. The final scenario for the end of the library is how in 641, when Caliph Umar and the Muslim Arabs arrived in Alexandria, he was asked what to do with the vast collection of the library, and allegedly answered, if the works agree with the Quran, they are superfluous. If they contradict the Quran, they are heresy. Burn them all. This story first appeared in the works of 13th century Muslim and Christian authors, and has been regarded as fiction since the 18th century. If we accept 272 as the date the buildings of the Library of Alexandria were destroyed, the collection of works housed there was nothing compared to what it had been under the early Ptolemaic rulers. Further, whatever was still there had been copied and recopied by scholars over many years. It should be noted that books taken from ships were copied, and the copies returned to their owners. And this may have also been the policy regarding private libraries. Visiting scholars also made copies. The scholars who were banished are assumed to have taken copies. Many other libraries existed, such as at Athens, at Pergamon, that had copies, and so the claim that all the knowledge of the ancient world went up in flames when the Library of Alexandria burned is simply a fable, unsupported by primary sources, and encouraged through repetition over time. The claim that the loss of the works of the library set human development back thousands of years is also inaccurate. Since there is no knowing what may have been lost, if anything was, there is no way to support that claim. There is a popular meme on how one knows one is a book lover when one is kept up at night thinking of the loss of the books of the Great Library of Alexandria. But in reality, no one needs to do this, because one can still read those books, or many of them, today. Yes, there is no doubt many works were lost, not just at Alexandria, but elsewhere. But many others have survived, and in 2002 became part of the collection of the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, the new Library of Alexandria, built in honor of the great intellectual center of antiquity. Why do you feel the myths surrounding the fall of the Library of Alexandria are repeated? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on our new videos published every single week. This video was brought to you by World History Encyclopedia. For more great articles and interactive content, head to our website via the link below. If you like my sweater, you can find this design and a bunch more in our shop at worldhistory.store, or you can find a link for it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon with another video.